Lovely to see you. My name is Kirsten Liljegren from Melbourne, Australia. Who have I met before at a parent talk here? So some of you are back. Good, I didn't scare you off. Lovely to see you again. It's my pleasure and honour to be here and have an opportunity to chat with you. I've got some things to share with you, really as a provocation for you, not to tell you how to do it, but for you to reflect on and think about what it means for you and your values as a family. I'm not going to tell you how to parent, but just share with you some latest thinking and research around why wellbeing is important for learning. It's also a pleasure to be here again to work with a team of teachers who you know are incredibly dedicated, work very hard, and we are chipping away and working on and building this curriculum and all that goes around it to be really up with latest research. So how exciting for you to be part of this journey of a school that's so innovative and reflective of the latest research on children's learning, and wellbeing is a part of that. So thank you for making the time and your busy schedules, because no matter what you're doing, just to stop and pause for a while, but it's a commitment, isn't it, as parents, and an investment really in the future. So for those that couldn't be here for various reasons, it'll be really nice to take that back for you to others and have some dialogue around what some of this that I've presented means today. So it's interesting that well-being can be something that we often maybe don't prioritise. We might sort of think is, oh, that's nice, it's there, and we're thinking in terms of children's learning more about what they're taught, the knowledge, you know, what are they going to learn, how are they achieving, but it's interesting and really important to note that well-being is a key to that. Without children having a good sense of self, without having good health, a healthy outlook on life, that sense of autonomy, without having good relationships with family, with peers, they're not in the best place to learn. So what we want to make sure happens from a family perspective and a school perspective is that they are the best that they can be to have the capacity to learn. Okay, because children can spend hours and hours in preschools and schools and nothing's going in, or it goes in and it doesn't stay there. Okay, so we want to make sure that children have the optimal opportunity. So well-being is at that foundation. So we're going to really look at the different aspects of well-being this morning. If you've got questions either through it or afterwards, please either note it down for after or ask if you think it's right throughout so we can have some dialogue. Okay? So let's look at the bigger picture of well-being. Well-being is about having good mental and physical health. Okay, so there's those two really important aspects. So that includes attachment. So that begins with you. If children don't have good bonds with their main, family, parents, carers, whoever it is, then they can't have that sense of autonomy and good sense of self. When they come into this sort of context, that's really important too, that sense of attachment and building relationships. Okay, so that helps with that positive self-effect and also self-regulation. So how are children managing their emotions? This can be a tricky one. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. Okay, so being able to manage emotions productively is that idea of building resilience and having that capacity to persist. Okay, and we know with learning how incredibly important that is. When you're stuck, when you don't know how to do something, not to give up. Okay, so this is all connected to good well-being. If I have that ability, I feel good within myself, I'm just not going to fall apart and melt at the first sign of trouble. I'm going to keep going, or I know how to ask for help. Okay, so being adaptable, being confident. Confident looks different in different children. It's not always about being an extrovert. Okay, this looks different in different children, but it's having the confidence in who they are, their uniqueness. Okay, and feeling those satisfactions of those feelings of satisfactions and happiness. So I'm not talking about happy, smile, but happy with that confident sense of self, right? So I'm going to bring you to that context of what this means for learning, okay? Because it's important in partnership that what you are doing at home is supported by the school and vice versa, okay? So that you are sharing your knowledge of your child, you know, because you are their first teachers, but also you are listening to the expertise of what is going on in the school. So there's some consistent messages. Because when children have conflicting messages, it's confusing. I don't know which way to turn. Whereas the biggest effect happens when we're on a similar page. We may have slightly different takes on things, but we're on a similar page. Okay, so I want to introduce you to a little clip. Just goes for a minute and a half from a wonderful professor from Belgium. His expertise is on wellbeing, and he has impacted education around the world on the importance of wellbeing and its effect on involvement. So if you think of involvement as concentration, of being immersed, of having the ability, you know, to learn. Okay, involvement, engagement, learning. So this is Professor Ferrelavers. You'll hear him talk in a moment.
Well-being is a beautiful state in which children can be
I'm just going to pause that and start again.
Do anything.
We tested this all before and it was wonderful, of course. We'll bring the experts in. Yes. Okay. Okay, back to Professor Lavers.
Well-being is the beautiful state in which children can be when they feel okay, when they feel at ease, they radiate. They are open to anything that comes in. They can cope with that. They enjoy. They enjoy the moment, they enjoy life at that particular moment. That's what we want. They enjoy their interactions. If we got that, we got a lot. It indicates for us that everything that has to do with the personal, social and emotional development of the child is going well. Involvement is about concentration. It's being totally focused on something, wanting to get that contact with that reality around you. And from within there is a motivation to do that, fascination. You want to also to continue to have that sense of contact with that reality and in your action, to take it in. Involvement is only possible when there is a certain mesh between your competence, your capabilities, and the environment around you, or the task you have at hand, or you chose to do. And that's the beauty of involvement. Because of that, it's the place in which you develop. You cannot develop if it's too easy or too difficult. You develop when it's just right.
I could listen to that man for a long time. He's got a beautiful way of being. So he says some really interesting things there, Professor Lavers. So how do we ensure as parents, and of course we're cognizant of those same questions, that children are okay, that they're at ease, that they radiate. They're going to radiate in different ways, that they're open, that they're coping, and that they're enjoying life. So if we've got that good foundation of well-being, then we have good involvement. Okay, it's that capacity to learn well in their way, okay, in their unique way, because all children learn in different ways. So this is why at Neev and in the Neev curriculum, as part of looking at the outcome of identity, that we're very aware of children's well-being, because this is about optimal performance. And Martin Seligman, who's a big thinker in positive psychology, You may have come across his work before, but he talks about how optimal performance is tied to well-being. So the higher your positive morale, okay, the better the performance. So this is what we want in children. We want to give them the best possible chance. Okay, we're going to look at how that happens in a moment. I'm just giving you a bit of the why. Okay, why well-being is important. We're going to get to the how. Okay, or some suggestions for how. So at Neev, we've been looking very closely at this. Been working with the team very closely, and I know that at the curriculum night that they talked about this. So that idea of looking at children's relationships, connections with others, and also knowing self. Being aware of how they learn, who they are as people. Okay, we have to start as a foundation. And that idea of looking at children's health. So this is interconnected. You know, if we don't have a healthy body and a healthy mind, we're not setting ourselves up for learning well, learning to the best capacity that we have. Okay, it's not getting children to the same level, but it's about helping children flourish to be the best that they can be. Okay, because they've all got their own time of learning, they've all got their own way of learning. So let's look at those connections between cognition and physical well-being as a starting point, okay, and emotional well-being. So we know, and many of you will know this already, but it's probably good to have a little recheck, a reminder, because in the busyness of our lives, sometimes our priorities can take over from the children's. We don't realise. We need to stop and reflect to see, are we prioritising these things? Are we creating enough space for it? So that idea that children have enough opportunity for rigorous physical play. I'm not just talking walking to the car, but also quite physical, getting their blood pumping, and reasonable risk-taking. I talked about that in the first talk when we looked at the 21st century learner and why that's important. So when they're released on the website, go back to have a look at that. That idea that active play, that physical play, has such a big effect on brain development. And we know in the early years, this is setting up the architecture for life. That 0 to 5, you're setting up these neural pathways, and this is about having many sensory experiences for young children, not about jamming them full of a whole lot of knowledge. Okay, it's setting up their brain to have the capacity to learn. They are learning as they're doing this. So physical activity is really important because it also gives them opportunity for creativity, problem solving, negotiating, all of those things. Okay? And also, when children have these opportunities, they've got encounters, opportunities to experience independence, problem solving, practicing self-control. I really want to do that, but I'm not sure if it's a good choice. If I jump down from there, I don't know, or if I touch that person, if I jump on that person, maybe it's not a good thing. So it's giving them those sort of opportunities, okay? And also to practice over time to have mastery and competence. So as Deb Curtis says here, we need to support an exhilarating childhood. So that's going to look different in your context here in Bangalore to mine in Melbourne, Victoria. Okay, what does an exhilarating childhood mean to you? But some things are universal. So giving children an opportunity, rather than thinking, oh, it's too dangerous, instead of stopping children, be careful, you know, what's a reasonable risk? Are we stopping children from having those encounters because it's easier just to manage children? Or do we give them an opportunity to develop to their fullest potential because they've had a chance to go, when I fell from there, I'm not talking about a grey height, it hurt. So I know next time I need to do it differently. If we don't give children opportunity to experience it, they won't know. You're not always going to be there for them. Right? We have to build up their capacity. So reasonable risk-taking. Okay? Reasonable risk-taking. And this has a really big effect and well-being overall on children's mental health as well. Okay, so there are alarming figures from around the world about the mental health of children and youth. Okay, and it's incredible at a time when many children have the most, you know, the most affluent, yet we have more mental health. Isn't that interesting? Okay, more doesn't necessarily mean better. So we have to really look at why, and I think in a very hurried existence, where children don't have opportunities for risk, to play, to be, it's having big ramifications. So that's why we really need to zoom in on wellbeing and ensure, when you look at the global picture of this talk, that you use that and go, okay, we're doing that, we're doing okay there, but perhaps we need to work a little bit in our family structure on this. Okay? So we have to listen to these statistics. They may not present in early childhood, but this is where it begins, and we can make a big difference to prevent it. This is about preventing it. And I'm talking about not just the DNA things that you're born with, mental health, but environmental. Anxiety is a big one. Okay, when we don't give children an opportunity to learn how to manage risk, they can become incredibly anxious because they don't know how to handle themselves, and that person hovering over their shoulder is not always there. So when I'm in a classroom and I'm given a task, do I embrace it and have an I can do attitude, or do I sit there nervous that I'm not doing the right thing? Do I take a risk with the task, or do I sit there anxious? This is why we need to give children, right from infancy, opportunities to explore and discover the world around them. So let's look at the sort of basics, really, that are a bit of a reminder for you. I'm probably preaching to the converted, but as a little check-in point. So those patterns of eating, physical activity and sleep. Okay, when those patterns established early in life actually affect later on, affect those attitudes, and also affect their start to the day. So affect that capacity. So if they haven't had good sleep, you're limiting their opportunities for learning. And I know it's hard at times. I've been there, okay, I know. But we have to recheck in with who is the parent here and who's controlling the household. You know, we have to step in and make some decisions and have some boundaries. So that inadequate nutrition or not great nutrition, not enough sleep, low levels of physical activity, perhaps stress in some form. You know, that research around the world, it is leading to obesity, diabetes, heart disease, depression, anxiety. Okay, I don't want to be all doom and gloom here, but I'm making you aware that it does have an impact because of how fast the brain is changing 0 to 5. Okay? So look at this recent article. Blame it on urban lifestyle, intake of junk food and lack of physical activities. Obesity in children is increasing with each passing day. So the World Health Organization said that childhood obesity is one of the most serious health challenges facing the world today. So the number of overweight children in 2015 under the age of 5 was estimated to be over 42 million, and a half of these were in Asia. Isn't that astounding? Now, they may not present now. You know, children may eat junk food and, you know, they kind of burn it off somehow. They've got very high metabolisms. But it means that they're setting up patterns that show up later on. Okay? We know that when children eat a lot of sweets, to have fruit, for instance, suddenly tastes very sour. So they're going to say, we don't like pawpaw. Well, you wouldn't. Have you had a sweet and then had a bit of fruit? It tastes terrible. So it's about rethinking our approach to diet because it has long-term effects. Sugar impacts behaviour. Okay, has anyone seen that sugar film? Yeah?
The moment my daughter has a candy, she'll be like really happy for like half an hour, and after that she'll get really cranky when it dips in.
Yeah.
So I've seen it like all the time.
Yeah. Do other people see that too? And it's hard because sugar is very enticing. Children love sugar. We like sugar. You know, it's everywhere in shops, and you know, it's speaking and talking to children, and sometimes we give in because it's just easier, right? But we have to think long term. You're laughing at the back. You're guilty of that, aren't you? Yeah. But we have to compromise with children. It's not about saying you can't ever have something, because we want to delight in things, but it's about saying it's a sometimes thing. It's not every day. And in, yes, please.
I'm interrupting, but
No, please.
My son is 2 years and 3 months.
Yes.
And I've never given him sugar.
Brilliant.
But now that he's starting school, he's going, more independently.
Yes.
It's just harder. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
all around.
Starting to be out of his
So I don't
control,
want
your
to
control.
Go from 0 to suddenly gets exposed and like, oh my God, what is this? I've never had this.
Yeah.
Go and do this. So how do you know the balance? Because
Yeah.
you can't keep him away
No,
forever, and I don't want
you can't.
him to suddenly discover and
Yeah. I think it's about involving children all along the way, about having an understanding of why, so to help them make choices. Now, he's going to do things at either it's a children's party or whatever, and he's going to come back and his behaviour will be different, and he'll know it, not in the moment. You never discuss things with children in the moment. We're in that crazed. You wait till later. So did you notice what you were like when you got home? Now you may have felt a bit sick, or you may have been wired or whatever. So to have conversations. So to say next time, think about if you really want that or how much you want of it. You know? So I think it's just empowering them to make, and that takes time. It's not going to happen the next time, but you keep revisiting that conversation because you won't always be there. So it's good while you've got control to set up those patterns, because he's had more opportunities because he's been less wired to focus and be involved and concentrate. Yeah. I remember when my daughter was 11 months, we were at an airport in Dubai and we gave her a bit of ice cream. It's the first time she'd had processed sugar, and she was crawling, and suddenly she was like this wound up rocket crawling around Dubai airport, and I thought, I've never seen anything more convincing for me to reassure that we're doing the right thing, limiting and keeping sugar away. Yeah. So in terms of the school context, think about the breakfast you're giving your children. Is it full of protein and a few carbs, that slow release energy that sets them up? Because otherwise they look at all that goes on, the sugar crash. So they've had something sweet for breakfast, and then half an hour later, and then they're all groggy and can't focus, and we're expecting them to learn. This is why their diet is so incredible, and they've got and they've got sustained energy over the day. So what they have for lunch, and then at night time, it's about how to help them have good sleep. So to give them something sugary, a sugary drink or something like that at night, not good. Okay? So and you've got to find your way in your family context about what is healthy, what are healthy choices. Habits to avoid, because it's not easy. Some children are, who's got fussy eaters here? Yeah? There's a few fussy eaters, yeah. So that's the reality. Some children are great, they'll try things, they'll make good choices. Some it's harder to navigate. But these are traps that are easy to fall into, but don't. You have to trust that they get there. Last time I gave a site to look at, it's from the US, but it's very good, called Janet Lansbury. Okay, so we'll make sure you get a link to that site, and I've got a couple of articles for you. She's got lots of tips on these sort of things, what to do when children are fussy eaters, as an example. But I'll give you a couple of things to avoid. Forcing children to eat, okay, because it starts to have, it's not forcing them, turns it into a very negative scenario, eating, and it doesn't lead to those healthy habits. They start to associate food with negative feelings, okay? You have to trust that if you have enough healthy food available, children will eat, you know, when they're hungry, when they're ready, but keep it healthy options. They'll get there. All right? I think as a parent, we stress at a meal, oh, if they haven't eaten, you know, the world's going to end. You know, that we have that sort of feeling. So I know that feeling, right? But to force and play those games of just one more, you know, one more mouthful, doesn't set up good habits. Okay, just 2 more bites. Here we go. If you eat your vegetables, you'll get a dessert. No bribes. Because then they end up wanting, oh, I've done that, so what do I get for that? It ends up being your whole, whatever you do, they're looking for a reward. Okay? Eating is to sustain us and to be healthy, etc., etc. Okay? So we've got to be really careful in the stress that we feel when our child isn't eating, not to coerce them and not to bribe them. Okay? It's so easy to do that. Follow your child around with a spoon. No. We sit at the table, we eat, or wherever your family eats. Okay? Never eat in front of the television. Ever, ever. Okay? Because children aren't then tuning into their cues. This is all about healthy development. Oh, I'm feeling full now, I'm going to stop. You don't notice that when you're distracted. So we want children to start to be aware of that because it's setting up patterns for later in life. Okay, so never TV, devices, toys, anything. Sit down and give them your attention. Okay, if you've got, if you're not always there and you've got helpers or whoever with the children, tell them to do that. Sit down with the children. This is really important that they have the presence of an adult to say this is a time of being, of slowing down and focusing on our food. Okay?
Sorry, did you say no toys?
No
Or
toys.
like reading a book and stuff like that?
I wouldn't. It's distracting. Yeah.
So when you read a story while you
Talk. Yeah, talk. Have it, you know, talk, you know, that is like a form of story, you know. Have conversation, build up that pattern that this is a time of dialogue and we can share, and you are setting up the pathways of communication. This start with your teenagers, you want open communication, okay? That starts from infancy. That we sit down, we talk together, we listen to each other, we share our concerns, we talk about our day. You can't suddenly do that when they turn 13. Or we've got to communicate now they're teenagers. That starts from infancy. Okay? So where you can. All of us make mistakes and all of us, you know, may have been doing things that's going to take a while to change. Sleep is really critical too. So look at the age group your child sits in there. This is from the American Academy of Pediatrics. It's a fantastic site if you're wanting advice on things like screen time and whatever. So American Academy of Pediatrics, great for parents. Okay, so that gives you the advice on sleep. So if your child is not getting enough sleep and you're struggling with getting them to bed, they're going to bed way too late, you need to work on that. Okay, once again, it's like eating. Some children are great sleepers, some it's a struggle. Or you're into bad habits and it's hard to break them. Okay, so how do we do this? A few tips of advice. I'm not a sleep expert, but there's lots of advice out there. Okay, once again, Janet Lansbury's got some really good advice on that. Okay, be consistent with your routine as much as you can. I'm not talking about, you know, festival days and whatever, but normal days, be consistent. Have a consistent routine. We have our dinner, we have a shower, we have a story, whatever it is. Okay? Whatever your routine is. Then that's preparing them. You know, it's a slowing down. Have the bedroom as sleep friendly, not as a place where you have time out. It's not a negative place. It's a haven. Maybe a place where there's toys and books and absolutely, but this is a positive place. Okay? Stick to that routine as much as you can. E-free in the evening. So TV, gadgets or whatever, that blue light changes what's going on in the brain. So it doesn't help children wind down. They're passive, yes. They're quiet, yes. But it actually doesn't set up for a good sleep pattern. Okay? Teach them how to sleep. So if your children are like my daughter who loves to be patted, you know, we have to work hard on teach them how to, you know, self-soothe as much as we can. Compromise. I'll pat you for 20 and then I'm going. Not I'm going to pat you till I'm asleep. Okay? And going to sleep is not a game. So we know children are master manipulators. You know, I need a drink, I need to go to the toilet. But to be clear that it's sleep time now. So what do you need to do before you go to sleep? Okay? That we don't enter into this game that quickly becomes a ritual. It's easy to happen. So while we're talking about devices, and I talked about this last time when we did a talk on language, okay, and the importance of language development, which is a precursor to literacy. Okay. Once again, the advice of the American Pediatrics Academy, nothing under 18 months at all ever, okay? Except if you're, you know, Skyping, you know, FaceTiming, that's about relationships and engaging, okay? That's different, but nothing. Later on, limited time. They say that up to 5, 1 hour a day, max. After that, you know, it's your call, your decision. The American Academy of Pediatrics actually have a really wonderful, you can use with your family to come up with agreements online about how you navigate it. So for older children, that's really good. Those of you that know that that's such a battle, who finds it a battle with devices at home? Anyone find that tricky? Yeah. So you need to be their media mentor, okay, to help them navigate what is very challenging because they're drawn to it. They also see us on it. So we want to be part of a life that you are living. Yeah? So we have to be careful what we're modelling. Put the phone away when we get home and be with children. Yeah? Because it's not just about what is going on for young children in the brain when they're on a device, it's what they're not doing. Right? They're missing out on opportunities when they're playing, when they're exploring, when they're with you. The learning is far greater. So we want to build opportunities for children. Okay? So part of that play and part of that time and part of well-being is also that capacity for independence. So this is not always easy, and once again it depends on the personality of the child. Some are more predisposed to wanting to do things themselves. But we want children to be independent so that they can resource learning, they can be self-engaged, they can make the most of their educational opportunities. Okay, this makes a big difference to their learning outcomes. Okay, so when we're in the busyness of life and we just do it for the children, or we've got all the helpers running around after the children doing everything for them because that's just the nature of things, I think it's important to rethink how we work with our helpers. Okay? How do we... I think you need to have conversations with them about helping the children help themselves. Okay, what systems can you have that when they get home that they're encouraged to hang their own bag up or put their lunchbox away, whatever it may be, because this is setting them up for success. Okay, it's hard when we have busy lives. It's easier just to step in and do it yourself, and sometimes that's a reality. You know, we just have to. But as much as we can, we have to give children opportunities to do things for themselves. Okay? It helps with their learning outcomes because then they can tackle challenges. It helps them with problem solving, their ability to persevere. You notice that keeps coming up. It's so critical. And they're more likely to cope with stress And in a school situation, we see all the fun and the play, but actually there's quite a few stresses. Just to be in a big group of children can be stressful. To walk in the environment and leave you can be stressful. Okay, so if we want children to cope better with that, to build up their sense of independence is really critical. Okay, so this child psychologist says that research suggests that children who are trained to be independent early have a greater desire to achieve in school. And isn't that what we want? To achieve in school in order to achieve in life. Okay? The traits that characterise a self-sufficient child is a willingness to explore freely, the ability to feel good about accomplishments, so that's that sense of happiness I talked about at the beginning, and are the same ones that characterise a receptive learner. Okay, that's someone that's going to take on board and process learning and make it their own. We want children to have that saying, I did it myself. You know, that moment. Some are good at doing that already, some really need to be encouraged. And if those who are saying, I can't do it, one of the most important things you can say is, oh, you can't do it yet. Okay, because that's showing that there's hope. Okay, there's a way through this. You can do this. You might have to practice. You know, that notion of you have to persevere. Don't give up when things get tough. Maybe you need to practice those monkey bars some more. How about we get to school early, you know, and spend 5 minutes doing that, or find a local park and do that if a child wants to do that, or they want to put their own pants on. Can't do it yet. How about I help you and we'll do it together? Yeah? So another really critical part of well-being is that sense of, we've talked about social, emotional in development, but zooming in now on emotional intelligence. And I'm sure you've come across that in various articles and newspaper things in business. For those of you in sort of corporate life, emotional intelligence is now recognised as a critical part. This is what people look for now. You know, if you can't work together with people, if you don't have a good sense of who you are, then you're not going to be able to contribute to the organisation. So this is about equipping children with the skills for the future. Okay, they have the future in their hands. So that sense of motivation, self-awareness, self-regulation, social skills and empathy. So important to be aware of the other, to be able to put myself in someone else's shoes. Okay, so I encourage you to read up a bit about emotional intelligence, because most of us value the academics, right? That's where we go to. How are they going? What are their scores? What are they like in literacy and numeracy? Yeah? If you don't have this, then you're not building the capacity for the cognitive. Yeah? This is going to look very different in all children, as I said. But let's further develop it in our children. Okay, so one of the most important things you can do in partnership with the school, they'll be working on these things too, okay, to help them manage their emotions, because this is a really important part, that self-regulation, important part of emotional development, is, like I said to you after your important question, make sure daily, even if it's 5-7 minutes, that you have time for meaningful conversations. Whether it's sitting down to have dinner together, whether it's sitting down and when they're having a bath, whether it's just after school and having a snack, whatever it is, that you are present, not distracted by the phone, but you are present and having those meaningful conversations. And not always about, what did you do, what did you learn, you know, but tell me about your day. Oh gosh, I had such a busy day today. How was yours? You know, so you're opening it up. And you look a bit worried about something. Are you okay? Etc. Okay? Accept and encourage your child's emotions. I think often we try and manage our children's emotion. You know, they're having an angry outburst or they're frustrated and we want to manage it, we want to stop it, we want peace and calm. It's really important for children that emotion is acknowledged. I can see you're feeling frustrated about that. What can we do about it? You seem angry right now, or I know you seem really cross because I said no to that sweet. Yeah? But you know, we had that chat about that we were just to have them on Saturdays, remember? And remember what happens when you have a sweet. So I understand it is disappointing, isn't it? I get disappointed too, but that's what we decided. Okay, so we have to have clear boundaries and we have to be consistent. We're all human, we make mistakes, but as much as we can be consistent. If we said no, stay no. If they have a tantrum, let them have a tantrum. It's part of childhood, and especially at 2-ish, those tantrums are very normal. Okay, they're just asking for guidance from you. They're asking for you to set the boundaries, not tell them off. Don't do that, don't feel that way. But I can see you're angry, but that's how it is. But I love you. Or a hand on, a bit of comfort, something like that. To acknowledge the feeling, but that's how it is. And stick with it. And support them through it. Help your child through those feelings and model emotional intelligence. You know, reflecting on mistakes, thinking about things, being concerned for others. Monkey see, monkey do. Yeah? They are learning from watching you, which we see in a classroom context. When children are at play, we hear your language from home. We hear how you are. They act who you are. Okay, so we get a little bit of an insight into your home when we hear, come on darling, come this way. We know that that's the sort of language that happens at home. So they are observing you, they are learning by mimicking you. So be really aware of that. You have a powerful chance to teach empathy, which I think is one of the most important things children can learn as a citizen of the world. Okay? How might it be for that person? Is that person okay? Oh, she's crying. I wonder why. I wonder if we can do something to help. Okay? And as I said, set those boundaries on behaviours. Children feel safer when they have boundaries. Not just a telling off and a bollocking, but this is why we can't do it. Have an understanding. This is why we can't do it. I understand you're disappointed, but that's how it is. And really recognise and praise them when they have navigated something really well. Gosh, I can see that was hard for you, but you kept going. Or your brother was annoying you, but you didn't let it get to you. You didn't get really frustrated and hit him like you did last week, you know. Really praise them with the positive. Children respond so well to that. So remember, emotional intelligence is that ability to identify, use, understand and manage emotions in a positive way. I think it's really important we think about that for ourselves. You know, what's our emotional intelligence like? A high IQ helps individuals to communicate better, reduce their anxiety and stress, diffuse conflicts, improve relationships, empathise with others, and effectively overcome life's challenges. So I think if children are equipped with a high IQ, you can see how it's a great foundation, can't you? Yeah. So emotional intelligence is the key to both personal and professional success. Okay, so keep that in mind, value that. Also be cognizant of stress at home. We all have stress, whether we're going through some sort of family trauma, illness, we're moving house, someone's lost their job, moving jobs. You know, there's a vibe that children are very good at picking up on. You may be thinking you're hiding it from children. We're not going to talk about the death in the family because they're only 3. Actually, children need to be talked about those things. They need to be included because they see you upset, they see you're not okay, or they sense that something's not right, and they start to think it's about them. So you need to talk to them at their level and have children are incredibly competent and capable. Okay, so to have those conversations. You know, Grandpa's died, it's very sad, we're all sad, and include them, not shield them from it. I think we often want to protect, don't we? Keep them in this innocent little bubble, whereas actually we're doing them a disservice because they know something's not right. So in terms of stress, what we can change, do something about it. And as I said, communicate, because this impacts on their performance at school. The other thing is to communicate to the preschool. Okay, so if something is going on, if you communicate to the school, then things make sense. Now we know why they're a little distracted at the moment. We're not going to do that assessment or that challenging task, because that's going to add another stress level that child doesn't need right now, or it's not going to be truly reflective of their capabilities, or they might have advice for you, importantly. All right, so always communicate. You know, we work in confidential ways. That's part of our job. So I think teachers have many roles, social worker, you know, so we're a good ear, okay? So here's some final kind of summing up points and advice, and then I'm going to finish with a little kind of clip, a hopeful, optimistic clip for you to bring this together. So as parents, think about how you can put an emphasis on outdoor exploration and play that engages your children's mind, body and senses. Okay? Find opportunities. Be creative with how you find that. How can you help children to have access to opportunities that has manageable or reasonable risk? Okay? Because this is physical risk, but it's also emotional risk. Will I do this? Will I jump into this? You know, is emotional and physical. What changes might be needed to ensure, you know, that children have got those healthy eating habits? Okay, what do we need to do? Remember, it takes 2 weeks to change a behaviour. So don't give up. You know, your children may protest. That's going to happen. They won't like some changes. But talk to them about why and persist with it. Okay? Have faith that it'll happen. And think about those environmental factors at home that you can change for stress. Have we actually been spending enough time with our children? Do we sit down and have conversations? Are we always telling them what to do and how to do it, and not listening and respecting their emotions and their place in the world? Okay, this is such a critical part of wellbeing. And ensure your focus is supporting on children developing self-regulation capacities, okay? To be aware of their emotions and know how to handle them. Okay, so it's good to have these conversations at home and, okay, what are we doing really well? Yeah, pat on the back. All right, what are some things we can improve on? And we can all improve. No one's perfect. So as Farah Lavers says, a sound sense of well-being helps us to feel connected, the cornerstone of concern for self, others, the physical and constructed environments, and the ultimate unity of the entire ecosystem. I absolutely love that. So I just want to show you this little clip to finish. It's from a school in the US actually, it's Boulder Journey School, and they do a lot of wonderful work and share it globally around the rights of children. They're connected to a university. And so I think they bring this together in a different way. So it's a kind of optimistic view for you as parents in terms of supporting children for the future. A reflective point for you. So enjoy, and then we'll have some questions if you have any.
Every day, as we navigate the world around us, we are inundated with an endless stream of information that incites a sense of discomfort, anxiety, fear. And this is perhaps most strongly reflect in the messages we give to our children. But what if the experiences from which we most desperately try to shelter our children are the very ones that would enable them to become successful, joyful, and capable citizens of our world? What if rather than telling our children to be careful, we instead put aside our own anxieties and recognize that there can be no learning and no innovation without risk, and instead celebrate that innate human drive to discover and then surpass our own limitations? What if instead we walk alongside our children as a guide and teach them to courageously navigate that intersection between risk and opportunity? Encourage them to cultivate a sense of their own powerful capacities and, perhaps most importantly, teach them how to stand up when they inevitably fall. What if rather than telling our children, don't talk to strangers, we instead invite them to see the humanity in their neighbors and to recognize that we and they are part of a much bigger whole? What if we push aside our own discomfort and realize that there is knowledge to be gained from a firefighter, a garbage collector, or just a random passerby? Because how will our children ever grow to be engaged citizens of a community of which they have no knowledge and in which they feel they have no place? What if rather than falling victim to the idea that direct instruction is the only path to success, we instead liberate learning from the desk and embrace the idea that the world is our first and most extensive classroom? Because physics can be found in a leaf, and history can be found in a story from a stranger. And the child who can find a hidden universe inside a puddle is the same one who, when their time of formal education has come to an end, will continue to greet each day with a sense of curiosity, purpose, and wonder. We all want the best for our children, and perhaps if we took more time to view the world through their eyes, our messages would speak less of our fears and so much more of our hopes.
Some beautiful messages in there, I think, aren't there? A very optimistic way of looking at things, you know, that the world is a classroom, but also importantly to see the world through the child's eyes, our sense of empathy. Thank you for your attentiveness and your listening. You know, does anyone have any thoughts, comments or questions? I think one, it depends on the child, and two, the important thing is not to overschedule them. So children need time after, imagine a day of school, what it involves for children, preschool or school. They need downtime. This is so important in a sense of wellbeing, time to process and reflect what they've learned. Time that, you know, most people think the more we do, the more they learn. Actually the opposite in a way. We need to give children breathing space to process all the things that they've encountered, also that they are rested, ready for the next day. If we're overscheduling them and doing so much, they're exhausted, you know, so they don't have that capacity to concentrate. So I would suggest, depending on the age as well, you know, to me under 5, I don't kind of think they need anything more. To go and play tennis together as a family, but if they've got a particular passion and you can see that really coming through, sure, you know, every individual child is a little bit different, but make a really considered decision around that. Don't overschedule children.
What you were saying
Yes.
about don't force them to eat.
Yeah.
They will choose. Give them a healthy choice.
Yes.
Let them decide what they will eat from that healthy choice.
Yep.
We've been struggling to bring her to the family table and
Yeah.
have a meal as such. And we've been failing desperately because then what's happening is they're stalking for sure. But there's precious little eating, right? And it's very difficult for us to show her that we eat and focus on her meals. So what invariably ends up happening is she eats in her room with me, and then I come down and I have my own. And if we ever say that, okay, now, okay, you don't want to eat, that's all right, you go. There's never a time where she'll say, okay, I'm hungry now, can I have my meal? Or else what's happening is lunch is becoming a 2-hour thing, dinner is a 2-hour thing. It's just time wasted
Yeah.
in waiting for her to eat.
Yes.
Right? So is there
Yeah.
a middle ground to this?
Yeah, I know. Look, it's hard because I don't know your child, and I think speak really closely with your child's teacher too, to come up with a plan together. I think is really important. To me, it's about giving children choice too. So at the meal table to say, do you want to sit down? Do you want to eat earlier at the meal table on your own, or with me? I'll support you, or together with us. Giving them a choice of sort of timing or where they sit, but I would keep it in the family area. Yeah, but I think sometimes choice, you have to trust too that children will eat eventually. They will. And just keep snacks available so that when they, children like to graze too. Some children are real grazers and they don't like a big meal. And how much food is she expected to eat? Sometimes the amount of food can be very confronting for children as well. So making it really small means that it's achievable. But they will. The body is made to have hunger cues. So if your anxiety drops, they sense your anxiety too. So they're playing on that. They actually want you to give them those boundaries. So take on board some of those things, speak to your child's teacher and come up with a plan and stick with it. Say, okay, we're going to stick with this for 2 weeks and see how we go. Okay, it takes 2 weeks to change a behaviour. Chat to her about it. So I don't think it's healthy. How old is she? Yeah, have a chat with her about it. So I don't think this is a good thing. We're not in a good pattern here. We need to change it. It's not okay. We're going to try a new thing. Okay, you might not like it, but we've talked about it and this is what we're doing. This is why. Okay, so involve her in the decision making. Yeah, well, what do you think? What idea do you have? What choice would you like? But we are going to eat in the family area. What was your...
So even extended joint family,
Yes.
your grandparents,
Yes.
uncle and aunt.
I can sense what's coming. Yeah.
So, like as soon as school is done, there are 2 kids, they're both here, and that's nice. We go together.
Yes.
The kids are the same age, we do everything together. And as soon as school is over, it's Dadu time, and it's grandparents time, and it's TV time.
Yeah.
And even if you say it a million times to the grandfather, nothing's going to change. So how do you...
Can you take the TV out? No, I know, that's a joke. Of course you can't do that. Yeah, it's a...
I mean, I can't do anything except for get down to the bad guy.
Yeah, so I think even News a Day like today, we've just listened to this world expert. I'm not, but this world expert, and they've talked about the importance for children's learning that they have limited exposure to television. And when they get home from school, they need to be doing X, Y, Z, having physical, because it's helping their brain development. So we really need to make some changes here. What is your suggestion? You've probably done all of this already. Okay, so once again, talking to have you been in conversation with your class teachers?
No.
Yeah. So they are your resource. Yeah, and also they're going to know your context more. But that happens in Australia too. Grandparents spoil. They want to shower them with sweets or TV or yeah. So, but once again, come up with a bit of a strategy with your teacher and say, I'm struggling here. I've tried it all. You probably have as well. What can we do? Have you had like a family meeting? Right, everyone, we've got to sit down. Done it? Maybe you talk. Have you talked with the community? You know, I'm sure some of you have had similar. Yes.
So there is this consistent fight. I can't say fight, but the conversations regarding how much time is to be given for devices.
Yep.
So my household is a half an hour or a 1 hour old devices across TV, phone, whatever.
Yes.
Half an hour, 1 hour. But then now the older one is in stage where she says, if reading has to be done because the rest of them are doing on Kindle, I don't want
Yes.
that now.
Yeah.
I think I will go on an iPad. So while exposing to technology, as a parent is saying that will they take the technology? They would take the technology like a fish or whatever.
Yes.
Whereas-
Yes.
So
Yeah.
where is this balance? So is it
Yeah.
right to abstain still when she's 18
No, no.
Or when is the right age?
It's the limit. They will use it more, especially for education, as they get older. So it's always about having negotiation, like you're doing. You know, having an agreement and sticking with it. Go and have a look at that site. I was looking at it a couple of nights ago, the American Academy of Pediatrics, because you can come up with, click on all these things, and it helps you have an agreement as a family, as like a media plan.
Okay.
Right? So that you can, and as I said, be a media mentor. So compromise. When they're saying, oh, but I need it because I get given my homework on, you know, you've got to factor that in. Now, this is the way of the world. It's not denying technology, and it's not saying it's a bad thing. Technology is not the enemy here.
Yes.
You know, it's
but
our use of it.
So how you use it? So you're already having a set routine, you have your boundaries, we all have so many negotiations through the evening going on, and then you add another element of technology. You got to ensure the apps are the right ones. So you know it's a continuous, and
It
you
is.
want to become a helicopter mom.
No, you want to trust. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's really clear, and it's even, you have like a family contract, and that's what that does for you in a way. You have a family contract and agreement, and what happens if you break the agreement?
Okay.
You know, that there's a consequence. So, and they help them come up with the consequences. That's what my sister does with her teenage boys. So they come up with the consequences, and they're good at that. And then they are really familiar with it, and it works really well. You know, one, you've got to negotiate more than the other, it's personality. But yeah, I really recommend having a look at that site to help you come up. American Pediatric Academy. Okay, I'll send the link, and then, you know, they can send it out. Yeah.
Just coming back to
Yes.
to what she was mentioning, the whole big family thing. So
Yes.
we live in, I don't know how many people in the house as well, and it's the same negotiation thing where it's like you said, the bribery happens. So I don't feel he's learning that yes, mama, you know, my mother is stopping me because this is not good for me. It's like the bad cop, good cop, you know, like mom's not letting me
Yes.
see the thing on the phone, let me go to grandpa, you know, and grandpa sees him for half an hour, so he's like, that's the only way he'll come to me because I don't really have a relationship with him.
Yeah.
So they get it. That is not good, but they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's only 5 minutes. Each one is doing a 5-minute, 10-minute thing, and it
Yeah.
turns into.
Yes.
So it's just, you know, it's really hard. But I'm just like, one of the things I do is, if the TV is on, I don't say please switch it off. I'll just talk to my son and I'll say that it's okay. They're watching TV. We'll come back another time.
Yeah.
You know, so I just
Yeah.
I actually look at the
Yeah.
film and I walk out of the room until they get the message. They're like, no, we're putting it on.
But don't worry about feeling like you're a bad cop. Your child will always love you. Okay? They may be angry with you or frustrated. Your child will always love you.
It's not good for me. It's more like mom's not letting me do it. Because if it wasn't good for me, then nobody would let me. I don't know.
I think you can still have those conversations with the children to talk about, but we limit it. You know, we're only going to have a certain amount of this time, or until this stage we're not watching TV. I know Grandpa sometimes lets you do it, but Grandpa and I disagree on that.
We
So
would
does-
recommend it because school doesn't really recommend.
That's really
Yeah.
Monday to Friday, that's what I use.
Yeah, I think really share ideas from each other is a good thing. Doctors and teachers. What they said.
We can be the bad
Yes.
cops.
Let you be the bad cops.
Like it's just to help them with ease of their anxiety. So I actually use the logic switch she's mentioned. That the blue, I actually tell, I have an age, as I mentioned, the older one and the younger one. So I actually tell them saying that, look, if you watch the iPad or this, there's a blue light which actually does not get the neurons in connect. The connection doesn't happen. And when I use that, the younger one is more receptive than the older one. And then they have a talk between each other and they say, look, we can't have that, we should have more neurons. And so,
fantastic.
So they actually use that. And
I know what you're saying because I've done that with my daughter. I told her that the more of this that you watch, the lesser your brain is going to work.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to understand, learn anything because your brain is going to stop functioning. But the moment she enters the grandfather's room, that's forgotten. That concept is totally forgotten.
So I use this, I was going through the same phase. I actually put together a 2-pager research work on what happens if these are there, and I gave it to the parents.
Yeah, great.
I gave it to the grandparents.
Maybe you can share that.
I did that. And thankfully to my grandma.
When is the grandparents' day? Maybe the school should talk about it. Maybe we should.
Yeah.
So I actually sat with both my children.
Yes.
I came back from a holiday where they would watch 3 movies a day, back to back. Right? So it was crazy. So when I came back, I sat them down and I said that you'll have had way more than your lifetime share of movies.
Yes.
So we agreed, I mean not easily, but we agreed on 2 hours of movies in a week.
Yeah.
And that was all the TV they were allowed.
Great.
If my mum-in-law happened to give them TV time in the middle, I would actually minus it. After talking to them and said that you're allowed 2 hours in a week, you watched half an hour now, all you get is an hour and a half. And it of course didn't go around well, but I've stuck to it for now more than 3 months, and they look forward to Sunday because it's a day, 2 hours, but that's all we get.
And they may not like you for it now, and they'll appreciate it later.
When I was traveling, when the grandparents were not available at home for them to be able to watch TV during the day, I had made that rule with my daughter that this is only going to happen on weekends. You're not going to get it through the week, don't ask for it, it's not going to happen. And it's done. But now the grandparents are again available through the day, so then that has again...
Some things are a bit out of our control too, so we have to maybe work within the parameters of if we look at, okay, this thing will never change if you're in that reality, but what can we do with what we can change? Okay? Now I think I'm really conscious that some people probably need to go, so we might just have one more comment. Finish, and then if anyone wants to keep chatting, then I'm here, we're here, but maybe finish with,
So you mentioned this point about where we're constantly telling them to don't talk to strangers.
Yes.
Right? Now you also randomly hear of all these things.
Yep.
Where strangers are really, sometimes not exactly friendly or good. Right?
Yes.
How do you manage that? And in my case, my sons are overtly friendly. Which, as if I'm around, it's fine. But
it's a really, really great question to ask. So, in terms of if you're talking about abuse of children, pedophilia, all those things that make us feel incredibly nervous, attacks on children, physical. Where that happens, the statistic is something like 93% is someone that they know. Okay, it's either a family member, a family friend, or a neighbour. Okay, so our fear comes out of media whipping things up into a frenzy because that sort of news is good news, it sells papers. Okay, so it instills fear in us. So suddenly we're doing this don't talk to strangers and children aren't connecting with community as much as they could. Your children are, but what is important that we do with children is equip them with being aware of their feelings when they feel unsafe. Okay? So And things like never get into the car with someone that asks you. If they say, oh, mum's told me, show me the text, or call mum, call dad. So equip them with that sort of strategy. So those sort of fears we have as parents, I know in Australia that's a big thing, to get in the car with a stranger, because children have been, you know, it's random cases, but they stick in people's minds. And in terms of things like abuse, to get children to say, no, I'm not comfortable, no, to communicate, to be aware of that, this is not right. So have those sort of conversations. If someone's doing something, either saying something to you or doing something to you, what do you feel when you don't like something? You get this feeling in your tummy. So to get them really be aware of that, okay, you've got to shout out loud. Take them to a park and get them to practice, I don't like it, I can't hear you, I don't like it, I don't want it, so that they are equipped to communicate when they feel unsafe. That is the biggest thing that you can do, okay? Because giving them this kind of, I have to live in fear of the world around me, is not the world we want our children to live in. Does that make you feel more comfortable? Great. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day. Thank you for your time.